going to be bringing yet another episode on some very, very effective teaching strategies. And today we're talking about how do you create relevance for learning, whatever they are learning at whichever stage of their school days. Okay? As well as what can you do, what are some of the strategies to generate a lot of curiosity in the class. Because a curious class is a class which is open to learning. And therefore here are some ideas that we need to talk to you about. So what we're saying is do something in your class which is going to connect to the real world of the student at whatever age your learner is. And how do you do that? There are a couple of recommendations that we are going to be showing you and presenting today, along with a lot of examples from the syllabus. One is, of course, the familiar role play, because whenever you play a role, you are actually engaging also in a bit of experiential learning. Then there is an idea of surveys, and there is a marvelous strategy called creating a question sun, and we would be showing that to you over the next few slides. Here are some of the starter examples of how do you do tasks across the subjects to connect whatever you're teaching to the real world of the student, of your child. Okay? For example, if you're doing mathematics and if you're doing surface area, rather than just showing it on paper or a board, ask the students to go around on a scavenger hunt, find whatever objects they can from the house and measure the surface area for them to know that everything has a surface area and impacts our life and our comfort in some ways. Similarly, if you're doing history, oh my God, why should I learn history is the first thing that the students might want to say. So you could create a timeline, and it doesn't have to be the textbookish timeline of whatever academic content is there. But even something as simple and easy as creating a timeline of the changing food habits in your own family. Our dadis and nannies were not eating the kind of pizzas and hamburgers we are. And possibly a lot of the food that they cooked is no longer on our dining table. So create a timeline of food habits. Or then again, if it is chemistry, that litmus paper that you get very little of, the chemistry teacher doesn't give ample amount, give them a whole lot of it and tell them to dip in every solution that they can get their hands on at home to see what turns blue to red and red to blue. And that is the way they actually figure out the acids and bases. So these are a couple of examples of creating a real life connection and helping them to experiment themselves and feel very curious, and their mind becomes a questioning mind once you put them into these kind of activities. Let's look at the first strategy about role play. So I've taken history for that. I like the way they say role plays is bringing the dead to life. Okay. So what is the purpose of a role play? There are several pedagogical reasons and strong ones in that. Okay. It of course sharpens your analytical and so on skills and presentation skills and builds confidence, etc. But it actually moves your learners away from fact to factors. Now this is significant in the teaching of history. Otherwise history is just dates and facts and memorization that the students are expected to do, which is nothing but a drudgery really. But when you begin to talk about the factors which led to these facts, which we talk about today, students develop a deep interest in historical perspectives. Okay? And they also gain a perspective. So what happens when they take the role of the people who were once living on this planet and use their own language to express what they might be feeling, they make some connection possibly with the past. So what are some examples of this? Let's say we're talking about the first war of independence, that's the way we like to call it, 1857, and not the Sepoy Mutiny, as other countries might want to address it. Now, connect to the real life. I've also got Amir Khan as Mangal Pandey here, and of course you've got so many other real life connections, like I think Shah Rukh Khan has played the role of Ashoka, and there is this Manikarnika, Rani of Jhansi, and the actress is I think Kangana Ranaut. So bring this to your screens and to your classrooms simply to make the current life connection. However, never lose focus of the goal. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get the students to analyze, to feel what the people at that era might have felt when they were making decisions. So you take the decision making off the textbook pages of your history and bring it alive in your classroom through role play. Decisions were taken, maybe wrong. We have many other characters, Tatya Tope, Bahadur Shah Zafar, as we know, for this 1857, and bring them all in. And there is a marvelous opportunity for role play and for feeling what they felt and why did they take those decisions then. One more is about global depression. 1930s is there, a part of their curriculum at some stage, maybe in the middle school. And so let's talk about unemployment during the Depression. And this is very, very current and topical. And the images are marvelous because they connect it so well with the current pandemic that the world went through. There were no jobs. There was total unemployment even now and as back then. So though you're bringing the dead to life, that period to life again, history is very much right here. And we are experiencing a similar kind of emotion. And therefore, there are children in the pictures who are saying, why don't you give my dad a job? And many children would have gone through this, even in the pandemic. So put them into those roles, or people lining up for food and rations. And our government, and I'm sure across the world, all governments also were able to give a lot of free rations to those who were not able to afford any of that during the pandemic. I found one image particularly heartbreaking, really, because, and I felt that this kind of an image, which is so personal, will actually deepen the students' understanding about history. Look at that. Students are protesting during the 1930s that we do not want the blacks in our class. Okay? And if children can just feel what it is to be actually segregated and sort of castiged and not allowed to be with whatever is the mainstream, well, we have the Right to Education Act in our country, and there are students admitted at 25% quota, and I'm hoping that they are feeling as welcome in the class as all other children are. But when you put our current children into this role play, they begin to become sensitive to the needs and emotions and feelings of others. That's the idea of role play. Let's move to the second strategy for connecting to the relevance of today and also generating a lot of curiosity in the class. So one was role play, I took history as an example. Second is surveys, and I'm taking geography as the example for conducting surveys. You could do it in any subject. But just for the sake of bringing in the social sciences, I thought, let's talk about history and geography. And I think also geography is the mother of all sciences, as my slide is also saying. Okay? It was the first thing to be developed. Human beings suddenly became curious. We're talking about curiosity. They became curious. What's on the other side of that mountain there? What's beyond the sea there? And they wanted to explore, right? And that's why geography is all about curiosity. It opens doors and keeps you wanting to learn. So like we know, physical geographers, they study the landscapes and landforms and the earth forms. And cultural geographers, they study our cities, transportation networks, and everything which has got to do with our cultural way of life. And we need to engage in both when we are doing the surveys. Okay? For example, surveys which are impacting our planet, physical geography, which is the climate change, global warming, and so on. Students should go around with a survey sheet and ask questions. How much water does your family use per day? What is the capacity of your water tank in your building? How often is it filled? How many families live in this building? And therefore, what is the consumption and how can we save water? Real life connection. And here is something, we have 24 hours news channels, right? And it seems as if, well, there's a channel called WION, World is One. It makes the world like one connected place. And yet, though we are connected, we have century-old battles and wars and feuds going on in certain geographical regions, including our country, India, and our neighbors. Why is that not coming to a standstill? Why is it not finishing? Are there geographical reasons, historical reasons? Can we do a survey to find out what's going wrong and how can we really help in conflicts resolution? Okay, so those could be something about survey. So we did role play and survey, and here is the third one, and it's a marvelous tool called the Question Sun. And I'm taking science, so you could call it EVS for this. So generally, all the questions are asked by the teacher. Here is an opportunity to generate curiosity in your class by first saying that, hey, listen, we're talking about reptiles and today it's about snakes. Is there something you might want to know? Allow the students to ask you questions. And therefore, you have to imagine what a 13, 14-year-old student in your class might ask you about snakes. One could be, do they drink milk in India? That could be a question. What is anti-snake venom made of? How long does it take for venom to spread in your body? Of course, it can go into neurotoxic and hemotoxic venom, depending on which class and grade you're really addressing this to. How many babies do snakes have in a year? Can I keep a snake as a pet is a very, very childlike question. And why do we pray to snakes during Naga Panchami? Again, in our country, India, we also have festivals around snakes. Okay? So these are the kind of questions which can come up, and rather than dismissing them, once the students ask you questions, it becomes our duty, morally and otherwise, to ensure that we address them. Okay? One more example of a question done slightly higher classes. Maybe you're teaching about the circulatory system and the heart. Once again, think about what kind of questions would 13, 14-year-old students want to ask you about the heart. One could be, is the heart shaped like a Valentine's heart? That's an obvious one. What is the meaning of an arrow piercing through the heart and the Cupid's play? Okay. Does a heart really have feelings, or everything is happening really in the brain? These are the questions which can come up. How does a heart attack happen? They've heard about this in their neighborhood, in their families perhaps, and they might ask you this question. And after a heart attack, can you still love? Very, very innocent questions which can come up. And this is the time when you say, it's my teachable moment. And even though these questions are some of them for a medical school, I am not going to dismiss them. We can talk about how a heart attack happens and where are the feelings really situated. So that's the power of the question sun, allowing your students to ask questions. All along, what are we doing? Both role play and surveys and questions and generating curiosity in the class, allowing students to ask you questions and showing the relevance with their own real life. It's a very powerful strategy for getting your class to a start and creating an environment which is absolutely ready for learning. So create the curiosity in your class. Intellectual curiosity is what we need to create. If you like what we're presenting, do like and subscribe to our channel. Shikshangan Education Initiatives signing off right now. Thank you.